just messed up my slides. Stephanie, I think I pressed the wrong button. Do you see me here?
Hold on one. Yep, hold on
Okay,
a second.
Thanks. I pressed the forward button on my keyboard and I shouldn't have done that. Thank you for helping me with this.
No worries. Summer of intention. Okay,
yes, summer of intention.
Okay.
So a summer of intention basically means that we're just intentional about how we approach the summer for ourselves and for our kids. And I can also tell you that kids are more willing to engage in things that are non-digital if they come up with them themselves. And I can also share that in 23 years of having educational connections, and also prior to that as a Fairfax County public school teacher, I saw that when kids came back to school in the fall, some were really prepared and some weren't at all. So by having a summer of intention, you can be sure that your child goes back to school in the fall feeling confident, prepared, and rejuvenated. So that means that we want to raise our kids' summer GPA, and that does not have anything to do with academics. Actually, it has nothing to do with grade point average, but it does have to do with 3 other factors that have to do with having a successful summer and going back to school feeling really good in the fall. And the first of the 3, the G, is go for goals, which we'll talk about this in a moment. But this means that we're going to work with our kids and everybody in our whole family, not just our kids, but us, our partner, to come up with some really great goals that we want to accomplish this summer. Then we're going to plot the path. Plot the path means that, instead of just having this great goal you want to have, it's also coming up with a plan to actually accomplish it this summer. Because goals aren't really that great unless there's a plan behind them. And then lastly, we'll talk about some activities for action. And these are things that may have to do with academics. They're different from going for goals and plotting the path, but these are more academic related things. And this doesn't need to be, this may not be important to you, but it may be important to somebody else. So we'll talk about that too and how you can sprinkle some academics in along the way. All right, so let's start out with our first one, and that is go for goals. So go for goals requires a family meeting, and that means that everybody in your family gets together at a time that you've already set up. So it might be, I don't know, say on a Sunday night after dinner, because everybody tends to be home then. And you're going to say, let's talk about the summer. Let's plan out what we're going to do. And you need a few things. You need a stack of Post-it notes. Everybody will need a pen or a Sharpie, and then you need a whiteboard. And if you don't have a whiteboard, that's not a problem. You can just use a blank space on your wall, because this is going to be a brainstorming activity where everybody participates. And then, oh, and one other thing, you also need a timer, which you can use your phone. All right, so then you're going to ask 2 questions. You're going to say to your kids and your partner, how do you want to learn and grow this summer? What are the things you want to do? What are the things that you want to accomplish? You're going to set the timer for 4 minutes. And during this 4 minutes, everybody is scribbling away one idea on each of their Post-it notes of the things that they want to do this summer. You may need to preface this, especially if you have younger kids in your family, by giving a couple of examples. And I'll show you some examples in a little bit. But here's a photo of my college friend, Michaela. And actually, I thought of this idea because it's something that I've done with my kids when they were younger, to have summers of intention. And it's something that we do in a tutoring capacity with our students. Instead of telling them what to do during the summer, you're going to work on this or that, we like them to come up with their own ideas, because they're much more involved and they're super motivated. But when you tell them what to do, it's not really the same thing. So this is an example of what I did more recently with my friend Michaela and her family, and my other friend Amy. And so she went first, and you can see our whiteboard where we had 6 names. There were 6 people that participated, and there you can see there's like a little section for each person's name. And she went first, and she got up, and this was an interesting one, because I've done this lots of times with different kids. But she said she wanted to yell at her kids less and enjoy her kids more. And it was interesting when she said that, because her kids were like really? Oh, that kind of sounds good. And it actually created this whole discussion around it. But one of her other things that she said was she wanted to meditate, she wanted to go away with her husband, just on a weekend, just them. And so she went and she put up her things that she wanted to do. Another thing she wanted to do was to try this new, she has diabetes, to try a new diabetes pump that she was really nervous about doing. So there's all kinds of things people can share. This is what it looks like. And this is my other friend, Amy. These are Michaela's two kids. One's a freshman and one is a sophomore. The freshman is super motivated. She's a great student. The sophomore, not so much. Executive functions are really, really hard for him. And that means having to do with being focused and planning ahead and staying organized. Those are all executive function skills. One of the things we had done a number of years ago when the kids were much younger is we went on, this was definitely a summer of attention. We planned a Major League Baseball tour and we went to 5 Major League Baseball stadiums. And he said that was one of the best summers of my life. And what if we did something like that again? So when William went up, one of the first things he put down was, I want to go on a road trip again to at least 2 Major League Baseball parks. So everybody got a turn. They all went up and they put in their up their sticky notes. And then the next step after you do this is that each person goes back up. And by the way, this takes a while because there's tons of discussion. And you find out things about your kids that you would have never thought, before. I mean, my kids have told me things that they would never tell me in a just kind of a normal conversation. You learn so much about each other. It is just so fun. And then you have another go around and each person goes back up again and they isolate their 2 top things that are really, really important to them and that they think they can truly accomplish over the summer. And then they pick those 2 things and they move them to the top. And then each person has to discuss why they pick those things, why are they important to them. For example, Catherine picked to get a summer job and to get her driver's license. So the next step is a little bit different than the brainstorming part. The next step is, and by the way, this is a photo of my neighbor's kids. They're so cute. The youngest one is 4 and she did it, and the oldest one is 11. So you can do it with all kinds of ages of kids. But I think for middle and high schoolers, it really gets them talking. But they were adorable. And the 4-year-old said she wants to smell more flowers, which I thought that was the cutest ever. So the next step is to plot the path. And to plot the path, this is when you really want to help kids fire up their executive function skills. And I created a worksheet for this, and this is what it looks like. This is the front of it. There's also a back. And actually, it's 3 pages. The first page explains how to do this entire exercise, which, by the way, you wouldn't want to do right now. It's a little bit early, but I would think, 1st of June, as this, summer is really rolling around. They'll talk about it a little bit more. And if you want this, just text 55444 and the word path, and it will be delivered straight to your inbox. So I love doing this with kids. We do it in tutoring situations. This is really so valuable because you're teaching kids the value of planning, which they need during the school year. Often kids are in the now and they just think of, what do I have to do now? Not, oh, wait, let me look ahead. What's due in 2 days or what's due on Friday? So this is really helpful. So they take their 2 goals, they put them at the top of the sheet, and then, especially if you have younger kids, you're going to have to demonstrate how to do this. So you might go first and say, one of mine was to read this book, and this is how I'm going to plot it out. That would be a simple example that you could show them how you're thinking about it. Here's an actual one that was done by Catherine, who wanted to get her driver's license and get a summer job. So we ended up in this group just doing it for one thing. You can do it for both, but it does take a little bit of time. So you kind of may decide, whether you want to do 1 or 2. But here's an example of hers. And these are all the things that she has to do, that she wants to do leading up into her driver's license, getting her driver's license. And it's great because it's not her mom saying, did you do this or did you do that? This is her plan on how to do it. So she's really plotting her path and getting everything together. You may notice that a lot of things that I've talked about don't have to do with academics, and that's okay. You know, and not everything has to be academics over the summer, because you will incorporate those things. Like, you know, Catherine getting her driver's license, just the fact that she had to plan this out is a really big deal. William, we're going to go to see the Cleveland Indians and the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's planning that whole trip, where we're going to meet, how far it is, the distance, what our budget is, all of those things. So that you can incorporate lots of like real life skills into this activity. So that's plot the path. Now, you may feel like, oh, this sounds great and I love this idea, but I'm also worried that maybe there's something else. Maybe there's academics to deal with. And let me talk, so if that's going through your mind, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Just hold tight. So going back to plot the path, if you do this with your kids the first time around and you just leave it be and you say, great, awesome, you're going to do this, I know you will, it probably won't happen. You need some accountability built in along the way. So that's why I might recommend having a weekly family meeting. You can call it a Sunday session, you can call it a check-in, you can call it whatever you want. But basically, this is a time to everybody get together again and just talk about how the week went. So you're going to ask, how did your week go? Tell me about this. One of the reasons I like having this on a whiteboard is once you put the stickies on a whiteboard, you can just keep it there all summer. So it can be in a public place, like, you know, public in your house, like the kitchen. But I find this is better than if you have it on a wall, that the sticky notes come off and you won't see them. But when you have something in front of you, you're more likely to be accountable to yourself. You're more likely to remember it. And same with the school year. You know, what I found is, and I've worked with kids, you know, for 23 summers, honestly, and getting them ready for the school year. And with the one, I have lots of tricks up my sleeve, but the one thing that means the most is asking questions to our kids, asking powerful questions, and then helping them with their own accountability. And so for a lot of kids, it does mean having that whiteboard in their study space where they can jot notes for themselves. So I love whiteboards. They're cheap, they're super easy to use, and they're always there. So it's super easy for kids to remember things if they have that whiteboard to refer to. So in this meeting, you're going to ask, how did your week go? Now, you might find that a couple things happen. It could be, if you see that your child hasn't done much with this, you might think, oh my gosh, why didn't you do this? And it may be your natural inclination to say, why didn't you work on this? But we don't want to do that. All this activity is for is building trust with our kids and helping them to create goals that are meaningful to them. So instead of saying, why didn't you do that? Ask a powerful question that doesn't feel confrontational, like, oh, what got in your way of getting that done? I try not to laugh with kids too much because they do see that as adversarial in some way. And I try to look forward. So instead of saying, what would you do differently this week? Say, looking ahead, how might you approach this week? Or what's the next step you might take? What's the first step you might take in getting that done? Oh, which day do you want to start that? Those are all powerful questions that allow kids to solve their own problems instead of us saying, like, you better start that. Why didn't you do that? Because that will turn kids off and then they won't want to converse with us. And for this activity, discussion and letting our guard down and just enjoying our kids is key. All right, so let's talk about those activities for action. If you're one of those parents that is thinking, what about the academics? Let me share a couple things with you. Just like we want to make this summer intentional and we want our kids to think of one or two things that are going to be really meaningful to them, that they can look back later in life and saying, oh, that summer after 7th grade is when I did this, instead of all the summers kind of morphing together, not really remembering what you did. So that's where activities for action come in, the academics part. And you want to be intentional as well. So once you've gone for the goals, you've plotted your path, now you want to pick a few tools for intentions when it comes to academics. And here's the thing, academics need practice. If we don't do anything with our kids over the summer, that's not a good idea. I know sometimes we think we just want our kids to be kids, but I can share with you, it's not ideal to just not have kids do anything over the summer. They can at least be reading. They can perhaps be working on maybe math or perhaps a little bit of writing. So let me share with you how that can work. You want to pick one thing to start. You know, maybe it's that your child really had a hard time with pre-algebra. Maybe they even got a B, and we're seeing this a lot with kids that they actually have good grades, but their mastery of the content isn't very good because they're kind of like Swiss cheese learners. They have holes in their learning. They've kind of been in and out of it, in and out of instruction. So pick one thing, make that intentional. Oh, I really want my child to brush up on their math skills. That tends to be better than, you know, buying one of those bridge workbooks where they're working on lots of different things and you have to feel like you're poking and prodding to getting it done. Just pick one thing to start. So maybe it is math, and I'll share with you a bunch of resources. I'm just going to share a couple with you today, and because of time. But if you text the word activities to 55444, the same number, you can get a list. I have tons of these things that can help you. So here's a couple things from math. This is my favorite one. It's called IXL, and it's an online program that's adaptive. So kids can go in, you can pick pre-algebra, for example, and the software will give kids problems to see what they know, what they don't know, and then works on the things that they don't know. If you have a younger child at home, like an elementary schooler, many of us have multiple kids, here's Academics is really great for younger students, elementary, even going into middle school. Perhaps it's something else that you want to work on. It could be writing. This is one of my favorite sites. This is a writing prompt site, and you can find it on YouTube. And oh my gosh, and I just realized that the last name didn't populate in here, but it's on the resources list that I'll send you. His name is John, and now I'm blanking on his last name. But anyways, he has this brilliant site that is so fun for kids, especially middle schoolers. So instead of just saying, why don't you write about your favorite flavor of ice cream, your favorite sport, which kids want nothing to do with, they watch a video, and then it's the prompt says, now create an ending to the story. And we do this a lot with kids in tutoring situations, and they love it. They're far more willing to write about this. We'll teach them how to use graphic organizers, and then they can finish the story, and they're just really motivated. It's very different than giving a prompt to a student. Here's one. Oh, for reading, as I mentioned, we want our kids to be engaged in some kind of reading this summer. Ideally, your school, Cooper, will send you a recommended book list. Sit down with your child. This can be part of your Sunday session. Hopefully, every child in your family has a recommended book list. Print those out, let them have the hard copy or pull them up on their laptop, and let them look through to see what they're going to read, what they want to pick, and let them pick the book. If you don't get that or you're unsure, Amazon has a really cool query that allows you to put in things like books for middle school girls, or books for reluctant readers in middle school, books for middle school girls that like horses. And it can come up with all different kinds of books that are specific to that. And then you can sit down with your son or daughter and ask, oh, what looks interesting to you? Also, consider audiobooks. And I'm a big fan of audiobooks. You know, parents will often say, oh, an audiobook, that's cheating. That's not true at all. In fact, there's lots of research about audiobooks, and they're found to be just as strong as reading a book. So ideally, you want your child to listen to the book and then have a hard copy or the e-reader where they can follow along. That's the best. But if not, if you have a super reluctant reader that just completely refuses, allow them to listen to a book. It can still help their vocabulary. You could also incorporate Dear Time, which is something I always did as a teacher, and I loved it, called Drop Everything and Read. So even if you do this twice a week for 20 minutes, everybody in your family gets together. It could be part of the Sunday session, and they just read the book. It could be a magazine. It could be baseball cards. It doesn't matter. The idea is that everybody is involved in the reading that they want to do. And then also consider whenever we want our kids to engage in something, maybe that's a little bit hard for them, like practice their math. There are certain times of the day that they're going to be fresher than other times. And we all know that for human beings, all individuals, we tend to do better in the morning than later in the day. And, as our morning goes along, our focus, our attention to detail, our ability to bat away distractions, it's called vigilance. The amount of energy we have is really the best in the morning, and it peaks right around lunchtime. And that's why you see in school systems that kids don't take any standardized tests in the afternoon. All the data shows that they're better in the morning. That's why all standardized tests are given in the morning. So when we think, oh, when do we want our kids to engage in some learning or work on their go for goals, it could be in the morning. Definitely, if they go off to camp or something like that a little bit later, it could be before they leave, if you can get them to do that, or it could be towards the end of the day. It shouldn't be when they get home from something like camp at 3 o'clock, because that's when everybody's in this thing called a trough. And a trough is really bad. It's when we don't feel like much doing anything. As adults, we reach for a cup of coffee. For kids, they reach for Instagram, Snapchat, or TikTok because that feels relaxing to them. But towards the end of the day, we tend to get a little bit more energy. We're never as good as the before lunchtime, but we recover. And that might be a time later in the day. I would recommend before dinner, not after, that kids can engage in some kind of learning. And then lastly, if you feel like, I really want my kids to maybe work on that pre-algebra to be ready for algebra, always consider that it might not be that your child doesn't want to learn. It could be that they don't want to learn from you. And I found that as a parent myself. There are certain things that my kids were willing to work with me on, and then certain things that I outsourced. So it could be, a professional tutor or an executive function coach like what we do. It could be a college student home from break down the street. It just might be somebody else other than you. But what I would recommend that, which is different this year than other years, is consider doing some type of assessment. So if you do end up working with somebody, ask them to do an assessment of your child's skills before they start. Because what we're seeing right now is, as I mentioned, kids kind of have this Swiss cheese profile, and that they have some pieces of learning but not others, some content, not others. So a quick assessment can determine, for example, in math, what they know and what they don't know, what they need to work on. So we take that approach where we first do a quick assessment and then review the main concepts that they need to absolutely know, that these are super important for later learning. And then we'll preview what they have coming up in the first quarter. So even if you go out and get a workbook for your child, consider that approach. If there's a little assessment in the book, see what they know and what they don't know. And don't just think about, oh, I'm just going to get ahead. Also think, what are the main skills that I want to make sure they had from last year? So ideally, at the end of the summer, you're not between a rock and a hard place, that you can find that balance. And especially if it comes from kids, especially if they can go for goals and they can plot the path, they're much more willing to be invested because it is their idea. So these are the 3 steps that you want to take to raise your child's GPA and to have the summer of success. And Stephanie, I will turn it back over to you to continue on with your PTA meeting. I hope that you found that helpful.
Thank you so much, Anne. I was furiously taking notes because I thought there was a lot of great content in there. And do you have time right now for to ask if there are any questions and answers from our parent community?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so
and if you want to stop sharing the screen,
yeah,
I'm fine with that too.
Okay, and again, like I said, I will include all the information that Anne mentioned in the PTO newsletter that comes out usually Thursday, on occasion Friday. If you have any questions for Anne, I have enabled everyone's audio and ability to post chat messages. So we'll pause for just a moment to see if there are any questions for Anne. And if not, I will, like I said, post her contact information as well.
Great, Stephanie. And it just came to me that the YouTube fellow is John Spence, and he's the one that has all the writing prompts. He's a former English teacher.
Great. Okay. If there are no questions for Anne, we will thank her and move on to upcoming PTO business. And Liz Davis is saying that she has used Educational Connections and has really appreciated Anne. So that's a parent from our community with thumbs up.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate that. It was great to talk to you. Stephanie, I'll jump off now, but thanks so much for participating.
Thank you for coming, Anne. I appreciate it.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everyone, real quickly, I wanted to go over a few of our upcoming remaining items for this school year. We are going to host our final walk and talk May 18th at 9:30. And that we'll just meet on the track, and members of our admin team will be available to us to chat about any questions that you might have. And if nothing else, you can take a look at what's been going on since the last time you were at the back of the building, because the construction is definitely in full swing. We are going to host a new family, whether that's Longfellow transfers or rising seventh graders, construction walkabout and greeting from the PTO as well as from the admin team on May the 12th, next Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning. We will have the design and construction lead available to answer questions, and Mrs. Barrow will be there as well, and just hoping to invite and welcome our rising seventh graders, just their parents, to join us for that. In case you haven't heard, there is an after-school activity led by one of our PE teachers, Ms. Knobloch. After school, she said she's been getting consistently about 25 kids, and they've been enjoying themselves. So on sunny days, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, please feel free to have your children sign up for that with Ms. Knobloch, and I can put that link again into the News You Choose, and it's been in the past ones as well, and join their friends outside for some socially distanced physical activity. We are planning an 8th grade celebration. Notice I'm not calling it a party anymore, because it is going to be scaled down and appropriate for our current FCPS guidelines, but we do want to celebrate and send off our 8th graders. We're continuing to plan that. That will be an event that is self-funded, as it has been in the past. So we will send out instructions as to how to contribute for your child's ticket via Pay for School Stuff, which is the website that the PTO uses to collect dues, etc. That will be held on Wednesday, June 9th during the day, and the kids will be able to go outside and eat. We're planning some activities and music, and we're just doing as much as we can within the regulations to, like I said, celebrate and send our kids off, our 8th graders. One thing I don't have up here is that we also will be helping them to celebrate the midpoint of their SOLs, which will be next week. We will have little treats for the kids after their SOL, both on Monday for the students that have come in that are remote students, and then on Tuesday for the in-person students. Additionally, we are helping the celebration this week of our staff during Staff Appreciation Week, and we have provided them with a luncheon today and with a gift card for each of them to express our thanks from the PTO as far as for their work with our students during this crazy year. I'm happy to take questions about any of those events, and I can continue to do that. And Mrs. Barrow is here, and she's going to answer questions as well and has a few comments. But before we move on, I would like to call for a vote on the executive board slate, which I can put up here for next year. As I did publish this per our bylaws at the last meeting, and I published it in all of the News You Choose newsletters that have come out since our last meeting on April 13th. We are lucky enough to have our current treasurer, Julie Ryan, moving up to president. She also hails from, now I'm forgetting which school she came from. from elementary school, but I know she was also the PTO president there. So she is far more qualified than me and is a great addition in that role to the board. Our vice president of membership and our vice president of fundraising, Melissa Schwartz and Margaret Brown, are returning to complete their 2-year term. We are welcoming Mary Lee, Laura Mattis, and Jen Clark as treasurer, recording secretary, and corresponding secretary, respectively. And we are happy to welcome back Seema Lohia Singh, who is finishing her stint as parliamentarian. And so I would like to open the floor for any questions about the executive board slate. And then if there are no questions, I would ask for a motion to approve the 2021-2022 executive board slate as is presented here on this slide. And your chat and your voice is enabled. Is there anyone that would like to propose to vote on or to approve the slate as it's written? All right, Melissa Schwartz has moved to approve the slate as written, and Kelly as well, Kelly Gentile, or Gentile, sorry if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Thank you. Is there any, I believe that we can just offer this as a vote, that if you can just type in the chat that you approve, that can suffice as the vote. And if there are no objections, I'll give it another minute. And last call for objections. All right, thank you all so much. And we will show that the executive board slate has been approved for next year. I appreciate that. And now I am happy to say good morning and hello to our principal and my friend, Lisa Barrow, who has, like I said, some commentary for us and then is willing to take questions as well. Good morning, Lisa.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good to see that you joined. I was happy to hear what Ann said. There were a couple things that I took away from that session this morning, even thinking about my own 7th grader and how I'm going to get her to read and get back to some mathematics and continue her skills over the summer. So I really liked the chart and laying out the plan with the sticky notes. I think that could work. I think sometimes it's hard to be the principal's kid when it feels like you are always having to talk about education. So I really liked putting it in a different place so it maybe takes it off of me, so to speak. So anyhow, I really enjoyed hearing that, both as a principal thinking about what our students can benefit from to continue the summer, and then also as a parent, I enjoyed hearing that. A few things, we don't have a slide for today. I just, the News You Choose is going to have our most extensive renovation update that we've had so far, just providing you with some information on where we are with renovation. So stay tuned and look out for that. In addition, the ability for you to make some grading changes at the end of the year, that's all information is also going to be included in today's News You Choose. So take a look. It's going to be chock full of information. I want to thank our current board for serving our PTO this past year, and what a unique year we've had, and we've had to be really, really creative. So I appreciate all the conversations and sessions we've had to work together to make sure that we're continuing to support our community. So thank you for the luncheon today, the surprise luncheon yesterday that came by accident, and that was great, and people are going to get another lunch today. So that's really awesome. Our staff are really excited. Thank you for gift cards. I know that that will go a long way. And I also want to thank everybody who has sent in an FCPS Cares for one or more of their teachers. We highlight those every week across our school with our whole staff. We thank you. Our teachers love them. So you can, and maybe Stephanie, if you can put the link in for FCPS Cares, or I can, as we take questions a little bit later, please send a note to your teacher this week. I think we're also going to include a link to something that USA 9 is doing. One of our long-term subs throughout the year who's served in multiple capacities, his niece is a news anchor, and so they're doing highlighting teachers this week. So it might be fun if we could get some Cooper teachers highlighted through USA 9 and their link. I think that's going in News You Choose as well. So anyway, wanted to thank our current board and welcome our new board. I'm excited with all of you. Oh, thanks, Stephanie. What else? I hope that you'll all come out to the walk and talk. We've had low attendance. It's really nice to be able to connect with the parents that do join and get some questions answered that may be even unique to your students. So please come out. I have our whole admin team out there. We were almost one-to-one in our walk and talk last week. So we enjoy connecting with you, and you know, it's a creative way for us to get to know you outside safely. So hope you'll join. And maybe Stephanie, if we can think about, we're thinking about our families that had made the decision to go to private school this past year, and the outreach we want to have to them to see if they're interested in returning to Cooper, if there's a way for us to have people share this with their friends. So if they want to show up to our walk and talk and they're an interested family in coming back to Cooper, we'd love to engage those families to welcome them back. Might be something we can do. Okay.
All right.
I think that's it. Oh, I could just mention, I told the board yesterday we had, about 400 students in on Monday for SOLs. All of our virtual students came to school. It was a success, and we just finished. The bell rang while Ann Dolin was speaking. Most of our students are done with SOL test this morning, and they've moved on to block 4. So another great day of testing. We're going to get creative and see how lunches go today with the weather. They will be in the hallways. We have dots lining our hallways. So our cafeteria will fill up, and then we'll line the hallways. So it's the first time that everybody will have to fit inside the building during lunches today. So stay tuned on that. Ask your child about it if they're here in school today. So, oh, thank you. Yes, we enjoyed having you, Christine, too, and your twins. So anyone have any questions? I mean, Stephanie and I are happy to answer questions that you might have.
And one thing I forgot to highlight was that at the request of Mrs. Barrow and her admin team, the PTO did purchase tents for the kids to sit under outside, heavy-duty sort of event tents, so that we can use the courtyard as an additional overflow lunch space, which the kids have appreciated. I think it allows them a little bit more freedom, but still at a safe distance.
It does, and thanks for that, Stephanie, mentioning that. I had that on my notes. I wasn't sure if I said it or not since I was babbling, but it also has provided us a little bit more structure outside. You know, when we first started, they're just kind of scattered around the courtyard, and now it just feels a little bit more structured. So they seem to be really enjoying being outside during lunch, and they have a choice, and a lot of students take advantage of that. And I think it's one of those things that we'll keep post-COVID. It feels really nice to allow students the opportunity to get outdoors, kind of take a break, and be in a more relaxed environment. So I think that's been a benefit, an unintentional one. I think I was pretty nervous about it, but it's going really well. So
great. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Barrow or for me? All right, I'm going to use your phrase, Mrs. Barrow. The window is closing.
Well, I just want to
window of opportunity.
That window closes, but please reach out anytime. Email us. I think that anyone on our ad team, myself included, we're really responsive to any emails that you send us. We want to make sure that you feel heard and that we know what your students are feeling about being in school, and we'll take your feedback on things that we can do better that we may not be seeing. So any outreach is great. We're happy to hear from you. That's a great question, Maddie. The school system has not communicated to us to say anything specific, any updates from the CDC. It is about to be approved. We do know that. There was some talk, like would FCPS stand up sites to vaccinate students? And I think that's to be determined. I don't know what they're going to do with that. So as soon as we get the go on that, I imagine I'll be called into a meeting. So we're very excited and hopeful that our students are going to soon have that opportunity. So I'll keep you posted on whatever I find out. Yeah.
Great. All right, all, thank you so much for your attendance. And as always, you can reach Mrs. Barrow and me with any questions that you have. And everyone, good luck as we enter the last, 7 weeks of our school year.
Not even. It is such a short amount of time left, very short.
Thanks so much, everyone.